Ladies and gentlemen, imagine this. You're standing at the edge of a cliff looking down at the life you've built so far. It's comfortable, familiar, and safe, but in the distance, you see the version of yourself you've always dreamed of becoming. Bigger, better, unstoppable. You know the leap will take courage, but something inside holds you back. Why? Today, we're going to uncover the truth about what's holding you back and, more importantly, what will launch you forward. By the end of this conversation, you'll have the tools, the mindset, and the fire to transform how you approach everything: your career, your relationships, your health, your purpose. But here's the deal. This isn't a sit back and listen kind of moment. This is your wake-up call, your turning point. The question is, are you ready to take the leap? Let me ask you something. Have you ever wondered why two people can face the same situation yet come out with completely different results? One person thrives while the other struggles. What makes the difference? It's not luck. It's not resources, not talent. It's something far more subtle and far more powerful. It's perspective. Perspective is everything. It's the lens through which you see the world, and that lens shapes your reality. If you believe life is hard, guess what? You'll find evidence to prove it at every turn. If you believe opportunities are scarce, you'll only see closed doors. But if you shift that lens just slightly, you'll see a completely different world. One where opportunities abound, challenges are stepping stones, and setbacks are setups for a comeback. This isn't some fluffy concept. It's grounded in how your brain works. Your mind is like a heat-seeking missile designed to focus on what you tell it to prioritize. There's a part of your brain called the Reticular Activating System, or RAS, that acts like a filter. It sorts through the endless stream of information coming at you every second and decides what's important. And guess who programs that filter? You do. If you've programmed your filter to focus on problems, limitations, and fears, then that's exactly what you'll notice. But if you program your filter to look for solutions, opportunities, and growth, you'll start to see them everywhere. It's like when you decide to buy a new car, and suddenly you see that car on every street corner. Did the cars magically appear? No, they were always there. You just weren't tuned in to notice them. The same is true for your life. Everything you need to transform your reality is already around you. The resources, the people, the ideas, they're there. But until you shift your perspective, they'll remain invisible. Now, here's the tricky part. Shifting your perspective isn't always easy. Your current lens has been shaped by years of experiences, beliefs, and habits. Some of those beliefs are so deeply ingrained that you don't even realize they're there. They're like invisible scripts running in the background, dictating how you see the world. For example, you might have a belief that says, I'm not good enough, or success is for other people, not me. If that's the script running in your mind, it's no wonder you feel stuck. But here's the good news: those scripts can be rewritten. And it starts with awareness. The first step to shifting your perspective is to notice the lens you're currently using. Pay attention to your thoughts, your words, and your reactions. Are you focusing on what's wrong, or are you looking for what's right? Are you stuck in a victim mindset, or are you taking ownership of your life? Awareness is the key to unlocking the door to change. Once you're aware of your perspective, the next step is to challenge it. Ask yourself, is this belief serving me? Is this way of thinking helping me move forward, or is it holding me back? Often we cling to perspectives simply because they're familiar, not because they're true. But the truth is, you have the power to choose a new perspective at any moment. One of the fastest ways to shift your perspective is to change the questions you ask yourself. Most people ask disempowering questions like, why does this always happen to me, or what's wrong with me? These questions keep you stuck in a negative loop. But if you start asking empowering questions like, what can I learn from this, or how can I turn this around, you'll get empowering answers. Another powerful tool for shifting perspective is gratitude. Gratitude is the ultimate perspective shifter because it forces you to focus on what you have, not what you lack. When you're in a state of gratitude, fear and scarcity can't coexist. So start and end each day by asking yourself, what am I grateful for today? It's a small practice, but it can create a massive shift in how you see the world. Finally, surround yourself with people who challenge your perspective. It's easy to get stuck in your own bubble, but when you expose yourself to new ideas, cultures, and ways of thinking, you expand your lens. Seek out mentors, read books, and have conversations with people who inspire you to see things differently. The beauty of shifting your perspective is that it doesn't just change how you see the world, it changes how the world responds to you. When you approach life with a lens of possibility and abundance, doors open that you didn't even know existed. People are drawn to your energy, opportunities flow to you effortlessly, and challenges become fuel for growth. So here's my challenge to you. Take a hard look at the lens you've been using. Decide today to shift it. Even if it's just a 2 millimeters adjustment, that small change can lead to extraordinary results. Because when you change the way you see the world, everything else changes with it. Every great life, every monumental success, every breakthrough moment begins with a single decision. Not a wish, not a hope, a decision. Most people underestimate the sheer power of deciding because they confuse it with simply wanting something. But there's a massive difference between wanting and deciding. A decision is definitive. It's a line drawn in the sand. It's a declaration to yourself and the world that says, this is who I am and this is what I'm committed to creating. Now let's get real. Decisions are hard because they come with responsibility. When you truly decide, there's no turning back, no blaming others, no sitting on the sidelines. You've burned the boats, and the only direction is forward. That level of commitment scares people. And that's why so few ever make the kind of decisions that reshape their lives. But here's the secret: the act of deciding is what activates your power. Think about it. When you make a true decision, you tap into a reservoir of energy and focus you didn't even know you had. You stop hesitating, you stop overthinking, and you start moving with clarity and purpose. Your brain, your body, and even the universe begin to align with that decision. Doors open, resources appear, and people show up seemingly out of nowhere to support your vision. Why does this happen? Because decision-making forces clarity. Most people live in a state of mental fog, drifting from one idea to the next without ever committing to anything. They dabble in their goals, dabble in their relationships, dabble in their health, and then wonder why they feel stuck. It's not because they lack potential, it's because they lack a clear decision. Without clarity, you scatter your energy and dilute your results. Think about a magnifying glass. If you wave it around aimlessly, nothing happens. But if you hold it steady and focus the sunlight on a single point, it generates enough heat to start a fire. Your decisions are that magnifying glass. The clearer and more focused your decision, the greater the power it creates. But here's the challenge: not all decisions are created equal. Some are made from a place of fear, scarcity, or comfort, while others are made from a place of vision, courage, and growth. The quality of your decisions determines the quality of your life. If you decide to settle, you'll get a life that feels small and predictable. But if you decide to stretch, to risk, to leap, you'll get a life that feels expansive and extraordinary. Now let's be honest, big decisions can be terrifying because they demand change, and change is uncomfortable. Your brain, wired for survival, will do everything in its power to keep you in the familiar. It will whisper things like, what if you fail, or what if this isn't the right time, or the classic, what will people think? But let me tell you something: every person who has achieved greatness has faced those same fears. The difference is they decided to move forward anyway. Here's the truth about fear: it doesn't go away by avoiding it. It goes away when you face it. The moment you decide to act in spite of your fear, you reclaim your power. And the more you do it, the more confident and resilient you become. You see, a true decision is not just mental, it's emotional, physical, and spiritual. It's about aligning every part of yourself with what you want. That's why the most powerful decisions aren't made in your head, they're made in your heart. They come from a place of knowing, deep, unshakable knowing that this is the path you're meant to take. But let me be clear, deciding doesn't mean you'll have it all figured out. You don't need to know every step of the journey to take the first one. In fact, the act of deciding creates momentum, and momentum reveals the path. Action breeds clarity, and clarity breeds more action. I think about the most pivotal moments in your life. Chances are they weren't the result of years of planning, they were the result of a split-second decision. The moment you decided to say yes, to say yes, to say no, to walk away, to take a chance, to bet on yourself. Those decisions didn't just change your circumstances, they changed you. They shaped who you are today. So here's my challenge to you. What's the decision you've been avoiding? What's the choice you know in your gut you need to make, but fear has kept you stuck? Decide now, not tomorrow, not next week now. Because your destiny isn't shaped by what you do once in a while, it's shaped by what you decide and commit to, day in and day out. This is your moment. Your power lies in your ability to decide, and the ripple effect of that decision can transform every aspect of your life. The question is, will you choose to stay the same, or will you choose to rise? We all have patterns, ways of thinking, behaving, and reacting that feel automatic, almost like they're hardwired into who we are. These patterns shape our lives in ways we often don't even realize. Some patterns serve us, they help us grow, adapt, and succeed. But others, they keep us stuck, frustrated, and far from the life we truly want. The truth is, the life you're living right now is the result of the patterns you've been running. If you want to change your life, you must first change those patterns. But here's the challenge. Most of these patterns are so deeply ingrained that they become invisible to us. We follow them not because they're the best choices, but because they're the most familiar. Think about this. How many times have you set a goal, made a promise to yourself, or tried to change a habit, only to fall back into the same old routine? You tell yourself this time will be different, but within weeks or even days, you're right back where you started. It's not because you lack willpower or motivation. It's because you haven't addressed the underlying pattern driving your behavior. Patterns are like grooves in a record. The more you play them, the deeper they become. And unless you intentionally create a new groove, you'll keep replaying the same tune, no matter how much you want to hear a different song. The first step to breaking free from old patterns is recognizing them. You can't change what you're not aware of. So ask yourself what patterns have been running your life. Look at the areas where you feel stuck. Are you always procrastinating? Do you find yourself sabotaging your relationships? Are you constantly telling yourself you're not good enough? These aren't random occurrences, they're patterns, and they've been reinforced over time by your thoughts, emotions, and actions. Here's where it gets powerful. Patterns are not permanent. They're not who you are, they're simply what you've been doing. And what you've been doing can be changed. But it starts with interrupting the pattern. When a pattern runs unchecked, it gains momentum. It becomes your default mode. The key to breaking it is to disrupt it before it takes over. Think about it like this. If you're driving down a road and you see a detour sign, you don't keep going in the same direction you turn. Interrupting your patterns is like putting up a detour sign for your brain. It forces you to stop, think, and choose a new path. One way to interrupt a pattern is to change your state. Your emotions and your physiology are deeply connected. If you're feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or negative, your body reflects that. Maybe your shoulders slump, your breathing is shallow, or your movements are sluggish. By changing your physical state, standing tall, breathing deeply, or moving with energy, you can instantly shift your mental and emotional state. This creates a window of opportunity to choose a new response. But interrupting the pattern is just the beginning. To truly break free, you need to replace it with something better. This is where most people get stuck. They focus so much on stopping the old behavior that they don't create a new one to take its place. And nature abhors a vacuum. If you don't fill that space with something positive, the old pattern will find its way back in. So what's the alternative? What's the new pattern you want to create? Maybe it's replacing procrastination with a habit of taking small, consistent actions. Maybe it's replacing self-doubt with affirmations that reinforce your worth. Whatever it is, it must be something that excites you, something that aligns with the vision you have for your life. Repetition is the key to embedding this new pattern. Just like the old grooves in the record were formed through repetition, the new groove requires consistent effort. It might feel awkward at first, like learning to write with your non-dominant hand, but over time it becomes second nature. And here's the most liberating part. Once you break free from one old pattern, you realize you have the power to change any pattern. It's like unlocking a door you thought was sealed shut. Suddenly you see that you're not a prisoner of your habits, you're the architect of them. Breaking free from old patterns isn't just about changing what you do, it's about changing how you see yourself. When you let go of the patterns that no longer serve you, you create space for a new identity to emerge. You're no longer the person who procrastinates, doubts, or sabotages. You're the person who takes action, believes in their worth, and builds a life they love. So here's my challenge to you. Identify one pattern that's holding you back. Just one. Interrupt it. Replace it. Repeat the new pattern until it becomes part of who you are. Because the moment you break free from that first pattern, you'll realize there's nothing you can't change. Sometimes we get caught up in the belief that big changes require massive effort. We think transformation has to be monumental, a complete overhaul of our lives all at once. That belief can be overwhelming, and it often stops us before we even begin. But the truth is, transformation doesn't come from giant leaps. It comes from small, consistent shifts, what I call the 2 millimeters rule. Imagine a golfer standing on the green, ready to make a putt. If they adjust their aim by just 2 millimeters, it may seem insignificant in the moment. But by the time the ball travels the length of the green, that tiny adjustment can mean the difference between sinking the putt or missing entirely. The same principle applies to your life. A small shift in your actions, your focus, or your habits when repeated over time can create an extraordinary difference in your outcomes. Why does this work? Because small changes compound. Like interest in a bank account, they build momentum. When you shift your trajectory by even the slightest degree, the cumulative effect over days, weeks, months, or years is massive. Think of a plane changing its course by just 2 degrees mid-flight. At first, the change is barely noticeable. But by the time it reaches its destination, it lands in an entirely different city, or even a different country. This is the power of the 2 millimeters rule. It doesn't overwhelm you with the need for perfection or instant results. It simply asks for small, consistent effort. And here's the magic: small shifts are easier to implement and sustain than drastic changes. They feel manageable, achievable, and most importantly, they build confidence. Now let's apply this to your own life. Think about a goal or area where you've been feeling stuck. Maybe it's your health, your relationships, your career, or your mindset. The mistake most people make is trying to fix everything all at once. They dive headfirst into a massive diet overhaul, an intense workout regimen, or a complete career change. And while their intentions are good, the sheer size of the change often becomes too much to maintain. Instead, ask yourself, what's the 2 millimeter shift I can make today? What's the smallest action that moves me closer to where I want to be? If it's your health, maybe it's drinking 1 extra glass of water a day or taking a 10-minute walk after dinner. If it's your career, maybe it's spending 15 minutes learning a new skill or reaching out to 1 new connection each week. These actions may seem small, almost trivial, but over time they create momentum. Momentum is everything. When you take small, consistent actions, you start to see progress, and progress fuels motivation. The more progress you make, the more motivated you feel to keep going. It's a self-reinforcing cycle. The beauty of the 2 millimeters rule is that it doesn't just apply to your external actions, it applies to your internal world as well. A small shift in your mindset can create a ripple effect that transforms every area of your life. For example, what if you replace just 1 negative thought with a positive one each day? What if, instead of focusing on what's going wrong, you chose to focus on what's going right? That tiny shift in perspective can completely change how you approach challenges, opportunities, and relationships. Here's another way to think about it. Imagine a giant ship in the middle of the ocean. To change its course, the captain doesn't need to rebuild the ship or replace the entire crew. All they need to do is adjust the rudder, a small piece of the ship. That tiny adjustment is enough to change the ship's entire trajectory. You are the captain of your own ship, and the 2mm shifts are your rudder. The key to making these small changes stick is consistency. Anyone can make a 2mm shift for a day or two, but the real magic happens when you commit to it over time. It's not about being perfect, it's about being persistent. Even if you stumble, even if you miss a day, get back up and keep going. Progress isn't about never falling, it's about always rising. Some of the greatest transformations in history were the result of small, consistent shifts. Whether it's an athlete shaving fractions of a second off their time, an artist refining their technique with daily practice, or an entrepreneur making tiny tweaks to their business model, the principle is the same. Success isn't built overnight. It's built one small step at a time. So let me ask you this, what's the 2mm shift you can make today? Not tomorrow, not next week, today. It doesn't have to be dramatic. In fact, the smaller and simpler, the better. Because the goal isn't to change everything all at once. The goal is to create a ripple that grows into a wave. Remember, transformation isn't about doing everything. It's about doing the next right thing no matter how small it seems. Because when you commit to those 2mm shifts, you're not just changing your actions, you're changing your direction. And when you change your direction, you change your destiny. What would happen if you truly believed that anything you wanted to achieve was possible? What if you fully trusted that no obstacle was too great, no challenge too impossible to overcome? It's easy to talk about belief, but in reality, belief is the foundation of everything. Your beliefs shape your reality, influence your actions, and ultimately determine your success or failure. Belief is the force that drives everything. It's the unseen power that shapes your experiences and directs your energy. But here's the catch, you don't get to choose the world's reality. You get to choose your own. The world will give you challenges, setbacks, and difficulties, but it's your beliefs that determine whether those things will define you or fuel your growth. Think about some of the most successful people you admire. What's the one thing they all have in common? It's not their talent, their resources, or even their luck. It's their belief in themselves and their ability to overcome anything in their way. They have a deep, unshakable faith in their own potential. And that belief becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because when you believe in your abilities, you act with confidence, you make bolder decisions, and you put in the necessary effort to turn your dreams into reality.